Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special early edition of Moohead Radio. I fully anticipated that Michelle would be joining me today, but she's had complications from her surgery and she needed to go back into the doctor. I'm very concerned about her, and I want everybody to put all of their positive vibes together and do what you can to will her to better health. Today, it's not like there's a ton I have to talk about. This is an NFL picks show, but not that that means a whole hell of a lot to me. Y'all know my position on the NFL, but today's take is more of something that is NBA inspired. And NBA inspired lunacy. The most ridiculous NBA loss in all of my years of watching the NBA happened last night in the Boston Celtic game against the Houston Rockets. And there are so many questions that you could ask about this particular game. But in my mind, only one is worth asking. How in the hell does Mike D'Antoni have a job as a head coach in the NBA? After watching this game, just like shaking my big cow head saying, you can't stop playing a game after three quarters. And when you're a head coach and you sanction two players to hog the ball at will, not only was this the most egregious case of ISO basketball that I've ever witnessed in all my years of watching the league, it is the contamination of the NBA, and it is the thing that has made the NBA less watchable. The notion of superstar teams and the whole idea of big threes, big fours, or whatever has taken over the reality of a game that was always designed to be a five-man game played with five men on the court at one time for each team. And in the beginning of the game, the Boston Celtics could not compete with the Houston Rockets. So much so they fell behind by 26 points. They were inept, bumbling, slow. The ball was moving around at a rate that the Celtics could not keep up with, and the Houston Rockets were getting open looks, and not just from behind the three-point arc, but layups, dunks, assorted easy shots. Then all of a sudden, the second half came, and you could see the Rockets stop playing basketball. Literally stop playing the game. They stopped playing the game defensively. They stopped running plays. And the thing was that you would say, wow, this is the most remarkable comeback I've ever seen. 26 points down in the second half, and the Celtics won. But the Celtics still didn't play very well. The amazing part of the game was that the Celtics never really shot the ball very well the entire game. But it required the Houston Rockets to literally stop playing basketball. And besides Mike D'Antoni, there was one person responsible for the whole thing, and that's James Harden. Do not ever come into my chat room and ever suggest that James Harden is the MVP of anything except self-admiration. My God, how in the hell can you go up and down the floor for an entire half of basketball with the bearded bastard holding on to the ball, standing at half court, letting the clock run down on every possession and hoisting up off-balance three-point shots? And he wasn't making them. And then forcing his way to the basket and missing layups or getting his shots blocked because three men were guarding him because everybody knew that he would never pass the basketball. I guess I see things differently than today's culture, where everything is me, 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 like a warming up opera singer. Me, 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 me. Everything is me, I, me, myself, I. James Harden is a disgusting basketball player. He's a guy who only gives a flying fuck about himself. And it's no wonder their record is dick with him on the floor, but with CP3 not on the floor, because CP3 at least knows that he has to distribute the basketball to open players. No Chris Paul, no ball distribution, selfish fucking ball by James Harden. And then you have Gordon, his sidekick, who's like, well, I got to make sure that the one or two times that idiot Harden doesn't hold on to the ball completely for himself, that if I even touch the ball, I have to launch an off-balance three or go screaming into the lane and throw the ball up off the backboard and not hit any iron whatsoever. The real question was, what were the other three players doing on the court all this time? I think it was... I don't know. What was Ryan Anderson doing? What were any of them doing? They're standing there. Trevor Ariza was like, remember I was making corner threes in the first half? Hello? The most unbelievable final sequences that I've ever seen in a basketball game. The coach refused to step in and tell his player to pass the ball. And if he did, James Harden didn't pay attention and refused to follow orders. Any way you look at it, D'Antoni's out of a job. Because you want to talk about a revolt, a revolution, a mutiny. It's like you couldn't watch the game and not know what was going to happen. It was like, fuck, he's going to hold on to the ball again and launch a 32-foot shot, and it's not going to be anywhere near the basket. Over and over and over again. And the thing that was remarkable is we started looking at the percentages, like 3 for 15. I mean, shooting that went like 15, 16% in the second half, you know? And Boston still barely won the game because they couldn't make shots either. And down the stretch, they missed a bunch of shots. But it didn't matter because James Harden was playing for the Celtics. He wasn't playing for the Rockets. He was playing for himself, for his stats. Him and his little pussy-ass step-back jump shot. Fuck him. Don't even mention him in the same breath as real MVP candidates. But you hadn't seen anything until you saw the end of the game. And let me tell you something about the end of that game. James Harden threw 2 men to the floor. He committed 2 offensive fouls. They were not bad calls. They were great calls because he's a selfish prick and he just wanted to take his marbles and go home. He cost them the game and he finished it off at the end and made sure his team never got the ball in bounds. If anything ever called for a player suspension and investigation, I'd say last night's game. And you wonder why every year it's Harden this and Harden that, and the Rockets this and the Rockets that, and they never fucking go anywhere. Now you know why. And believe me, Chris Paul isn't going to be able to control that monster either. It is more important to be a great me than a great we. And even the Boston Celtics, to show you how little respect at the end of the game the Celtics had for James Harden and his team. When you're down by 3 with 11 seconds left in the game and you go for a lay-in and you're banking on the fact that they can't even get the ball in bounds because they're all going to try to throw the ball to James Harden? How's that for coaching strategy, folks? What is Mike D'Antoni thinking? If they inbound the ball, tip the ball all the way back in the backcourt, at that point, the clock runs out. But no, they can only throw the ball to one guy because that one guy is the only guy who touched the ball for the final 12 minutes of the game. Unbelievable. And you want to know, I'll go one step further with this, and then I'll be done with it, because as far as I'm concerned, people like James Harden are ruining the NBA watching experience, and they're not to be taken seriously as anything except ball hogs. Afterwards, Harden doesn't blame himself. Well, why would he, the self-satiated prick? Why would he? He blames the fact, there are only 2 officials out there because the third guy got sick before the game. Fucking A! The goddamn official was right in front of you, you bearded prick! You were literally 5 feet away on both calls from hurling him into the floor in front of one of those 2 officials. You can't make the argument that they were out of position. You did it right in front of them. And you did it intentionally because you were blown away and you sabotaged your own team. Fuck you. And your 2-man officiating. And you know something? In the first half, the Celtics didn't get a good call. And I'm not protecting Kyrie Irving and the Celtics. I'm just telling you the truth. If there was anybody who got screwed on the 2-man officiating, it was the Celtics in the first half of the game. And at the end, that's all 100% on James Harden. 100 fucking percent. Unbelievable. Ugh. Now, I'm over in the chat room, and Tony is saying, how in the heck did the Cavs lose to Sacramento? We're kind of hoping that it was a hangover game from the Golden State game. But hi, Nick Eschenbrenner. How you doing? We're hoping it's a hangover game. We're going to find out soon enough, aren't we? Westbrook is the same way, Tony says. Teams like that fail in the postseason, absolutely. And it is the reason why the Wolves lost to Milwaukee last night, a game that the Timberwolves should never lost, because Jimmy Butler was brought over to be El Hombre. And when you are the man, and that's the thing, that's what made Kyrie Irving leave Cleveland. He wanted to be the man. The culture in the league is unfortunately me before we. And that is where things end up like this. Yeah. Jimmy Butler was a guy who came into the league because of his defensive prowess, not because of his ability to score the basketball. It's amazing, isn't it? It was Marcus Smart twice. Yeah, well, Marcus Smart will hold on to people. But you know something? If you had to have followed Cleveland sports long enough, Tony, to know that when you're just the little 90-pound weakling, everyone's going to kick sand in your face. When you blow a 26-point lead by one man hogging the ball, you're going to complete the cycle. I mean, at that point, you could have held him. You could have blown him up with a grenade. You could have poked him in the eyes. You could have done anything you wanted, and the referees would have let you get away with it because they deserve to lose the game. The coach deserved to lose the game. The whole franchise deserves to lose. It's like Harden is the perpetual runner-up for the MVP, and God damn it, he's so hungry for that trophy. Not the trophy that matters, not the we trophy, the me trophy. He's so desperate for the me trophy, he fucks his team and his teammates over. It's unbelievable. Jim Farkas, how you doing? Who do you think the Browns should draft at quarterback? Are we back to that again? I just want the season to end first, and I want Hugh Jackson. You know, Hugh Jackson said he's going to swim in the lake, by the way. He's going to swim in Lake Erie, and he's going to do it for charity. I have an asterisk, a clause in a legal sense. I want to choose the terms in which he swims in Lake Erie, and I don't want him going in and just, wading into the water. I want to take him out in a boat in the middle of Lake Erie and dump him into the middle of the lake, and then he has to find his way onto shore himself. And if he makes it, he can return as head coach. And if he doesn't, if he dies, he dies. And do it for charity. You could raise more money that way. If there was a possibility that Hugh Jackson would perish in all of this, believe me, the charities would be happier. I'd be happier. You'd be happier. I want the Browns to pick Josh Rosen. Don't care if he wants to come or not. You don't want to spell come C-U-M, dude. You don't care if Josh Rosen wants to come or not. What? Is he... Sounds like an old Pittsburgh quarterback, as I remember. The problem wasn't coming. It was with what gender. Tony, tell him to go to scuba dive the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald with half an empty tank. Yeah, you know, it would be entertaining. You could video the thing. You could have TV5 WEWS news and sports every quarter hour. You could have a helicopter, the eye in the sky, would be looking down at a bloated, bald Huey Jackson struggling in the water, saying he's still trying. He's still trying. What do I think about quarterbacks? I try not to think about that this time of the year because honestly, I do research and all I can tell you is this. It would take inordinate intestinal fortitude for any quarterback to come to Cleveland. Tim King, how you doing? Keep Kaiser in starting draft. Barkley needs a better running back. I don't know what that means. Jackson's a great coach, needs more time. You mean in prison or in the lake? I think he needs more time in the lake. I think days. We could have a Gilligan's Island kind of thing where Hugh just kind of drifts up on a shore and is abandoned for life. Yeah, saying that Hugh Jackson's a great coach, Tim. I mean, great. You're going to give a man superlatives who's 1-30? Is that or 1-32, 1-31, whatever the fuck he is? That's great. Aren't we finished with superlatives yet? But I can't do anything about Huey. You know, he's going to be there next year. That's what the owner says, and I can't do anything about that. We just have to ignore him the best we can. As far as quarterbacks are concerned, you got to take a real strong kid. And I don't mean like 6'4", 230 pounds strong. I mean emotionally. You got to have a guy who is able to take a licking and keep on ticking. That's what you need. And I would put the mental fortitude, you know, we put the physical attributes in Kaiser way above everything else because that's all I heard about Deshaun Kaiser was, oh, he's got all the tools. He's got the height. He's got the weight. He's athletic and he's got a strong arm. But we didn't take into account a nickel head. No way. And you can see that he's defeated. You can see that despite all the bluster that Deshaun Kaiser, the front that he puts up, you know, after losses, that it's gotten to him. It's eaten away at him. And he's just trying ridiculous things on the field that have no chance of succeeding. Tim King is on drugs in the chat room, trade the first overall pick and draft defense. Well, look, the way that I look at it is this. You have to identify a quarterback. And your first priority in the world of down the road football is to get your hands on a young quarterback who you think could be a future quarterback. Me personally, you know how I feel. I've already stated you're going to start a veteran next year anyway. You've got to bring a veteran in from free agency and you've got to draft a quarterback, but you also need to draft defensive backs and an athletic linebacker. I think I've been real clear about this, but you cannot just continue to take second and third round quarterbacks and fifth round quarterbacks and out of the scrap heap and try to hope that they're somehow going to find their way onto a roster and play with any immediacy. You you've got to get the veteran quarterback in, and you've got to bring in a strong-minded young quarterback who is coachable, who understands that he's not going to play next year, that he's going to play underneath the veteran who's going to prep him and teach him some of the ins and outs of the league. You're going to give him, the young kid, some reps in practices, and you're going to let that pro, the veteran, be his tutor. That's the way it has to work. And, who I think it is, I don't know, because, in the me generation, they all want to come out and be starters in the NFL. It's a bad play. It's a bad thing putting a young kid out on the field without a complement of NFL caliber players surrounding him. So, that's kind of the way that is. My God. People want, and look at this for a headline. Brady Quinn desperately wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns. And as far as Brady Quinn is concerned, I was desperate to get rid of him. So another meaningless Notre Dame quarterback who was underwhelming arm, underwhelming everything. Nobody cares whether he wanted to be here, he didn't want to be here. In the end, he couldn't get the job done. And and I understand the people who are defending Hue Jackson, the revolutionary head coach. And I understand that the team's got little talent, but there's a difference between having little talent on the field and being well coached and having little talent on the field and being miserably coached. And Hue Jackson is an embarrassment to the coaching profession. He is disheveled, disorganized. He's panic-stricken. He abandons his running game. He doesn't have a clear-cut strategy. He literally he changes his mind every 10 minutes. He says one thing and does another. He changes his point of view every 24 hours. He has no faith in the people that he puts on the field. He points fingers and accuses and blames those that he feels that he can get away with pushing around, and yet he somehow has no problem with the guys who kiss his big black ass. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I hate straw bosses. I don't like Hue Jackson, and I want him gone. I can't do anything about it personally. All right. Kaiser is the future here. I'd bring in Alex Smith as a backup and keep Kessler as third string. Let me explain something to you about the way the world works, Tim. Bringing in Alex Smith is not going to be a backup. Alex Smith will start. That's the first thing. Kaiser is trash, Mr. Mikey Duncan. You're absolutely right. If Kaiser is the future isn't worth seeing. All right. If you're right, Tim, if you're right, then none of us should ever watch the Browns ever again because there is no future. It's that bleak. Kaiser does not have the mental necessities and the strength and perseverance to be a starting NFL quarterback. He's a panicker. Don't need that in Cleveland. As far as keeping Kessler, I couldn't disagree with you more on every front. Kessler obviously regressed so badly from the first year to the second year, and he has no pocket presence, and he gets sacked too much. And I think that there's a much better chance that Hogan will be a backup quarterback, and your rookie quarterback will be carrying a clipboard around as third string. And that's mainly because of Hogan's background with the general manager of the Browns. Chuck Steak. Hey, Chuck Steak. There's a relative of mine. I tried to tell my friend that LeBron may be better than Jordan, but he said Jordan never lost in the finals, so LeBron will never be better than Jordan. Thoughts on that? Sure. There's going to be a lot of different ways that you can determine who a better player is. And, I love the fact that when we say we, they say me, and when we say me, they say we. So the people who support Michael Jordan, in essence, used to have a clear-cut argument because all of his statistics were such that you couldn't question, and he was singularly the biggest economic force in the NBA with his Jordan-branded shoes and you couldn't even look cross-eyed at the guys without him drawing fouls. Went to the free throw line a ton, and he was the first real multimedia superstar and pitchman of the NBA, which is wonderful. He was also a great basketball player, don't get me wrong. But all of those individual statistics have been surpassed and being surpassed by LeBron James. So the people who talked about the me now talk about the we, which is the number of, titles. And, there are other guys on the floor, and there are organizations, and there's the competition. I mean, let's be honest about this. Michael Jordan never had to play against the Golden State Warriors. He never had to play against teams that had multiple superstars. The NBA was very different in those days, with the exception of the Lakers, who had a dynasty simply because they had so many goddamn players and never lost any of them to free agency. But back then, if you look at the Bulls team, and you had Cartwright, and you had Pippen, and you had Jordan, then in different incarnations, you had Kerr, you had Ronnie Harper, they had some great defensive players, but the focal point was Michael Jordan. So the me was all about the Bulls. Now all of a sudden the we becomes, because the only argument they can sustain so that they can maintain that he'll always be. It's the end of the conversation before it begins. It's just like your friend Chuck. They end the conversation before it begins just by saying, "Oh, the number of titles and number of times in the finals. That's it. The end of the conversation." It's like, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to convince any person who believes that Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player who ever lived. I'm never going to convince somebody who believes that way that it's otherwise. But I believe my eyes, and I saw both of them play in their prime, and one has a much greater prime than the other. And I think LeBron James is an individually more accomplished basketball player. I think that he can do many more things than Jordan. In a straight line foot race, he's faster than Jordan. He's taller than Jordan. He jumps higher than Jordan. Okay? Doesn't shoot free throws as well as Jordan. Right? He's become a vastly better three-point shooter than Michael Jordan was at any time in his career. He's made the adjustment to playing the four far better than Michael Jordan did at the end of his career. He assists the ball far better than Michael Jordan. He passes the ball far better. So I look at it from a versatility perspective rather than looking at a record. I like to assess somebody on merits of what they do versus what the other guy did, not who he played for. And quite honestly, LeBron James just does more things better than Michael Jordan. And anybody who argues that is blind. They're going to fall back on the titles, and so be it. It's going to be the perpetuating, never-ending argument. But you know how I feel. And next time somebody gets on you about that, Mr. Chuck Steak, and tells you, "Oh, well, he's better because of the finals," it's like, remind him why Michael Jordan had to run the baseball, that he was in the middle of a gambling investigation. Remind him that he kept retiring, that by the end of his career, he couldn't get off the ground. He finished his career with the Wizards, and he sucked. And he had a precipitous fall in his ability. And he couldn't play baseball either. So just remind him that there is other pieces of history involved with Michael Jordan. And if you want to declare somebody the GOAT, go right ahead. Go right ahead. But just looking at it, talent to talent. And again, we're comparing something almost 30 years, 20 to 30 years apart. And LeBron James is the prototype of the perfect NBA athlete. 6'8", some say 6'9", 260 pounds, and fast, agile, handles the ball. I mean, Michael Jordan couldn't set up a play and be a playmaker. I mean, it's way beyond the scope of what Michael Jordan was capable of doing. Michael Jordan was a magnificent scorer, and he was the most tenacious player of his generation. So 1 and 2, you can argue it out yourselves. I think it's obvious who the 2 best are anyway. Where's the link to the chat for Google Hangout? Ah, you're not on it right now? All right, let's do this. I'll put it in there. It should be right here. Yeah, and the live chat is right on the right side of the screen. Doo-dah, doo-dah. There you go. And Tim is not done yet. Tim King. Kaiser will surprise many. He already has. He shocked legions and legions of Browns fans by throwing the ball up in the air. Absolutely shocked them. They'll be 8-8. The Browns are going to be 8-8 next season. With a quarterback who can barely complete 50% of his passes and who turns the ball over in the red zone more than any other quarterback in the history of the game. With that, Tim, I'm done chatting with you. 3 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Anybody who says something stupid like that, I mean, there just gets to be a point where there's nothing that we saw from Deshaun Kaiser that would even give us a glimmer of hope. Not even a glimmer of hope. And as far as Huey Jackson, the revolutionary Browns head coach, I mean, it doesn't matter that Isaiah Crowell will be gone because you have to have a running back. You have to have a running game to win in the AFC North. You've got to have it. And if you don't use your running game, it doesn't really matter. You're welcome, Vicious Sid. Sorry, I guess the link I put up in on Twitter maybe is a view only. This is your interactive chat room. Sorry about that. Hey, a Bills fan. All right, Vicious Sid, that's good. I mean, you've seen more than your fair share of quarterbacks run through there after your career guy, Jim Kelly, who, thank goodness, is still with us. And Kelly, a tough guy. Tough guy. He may have been a tough teammate in some respect, too. But there was no doubt about the fact that he could get you there. It was just a shame that the Bills never got over the hump. But you've seen more than your fair share of veteran guys brought in. And what we're talking about, is like the Ryan Fitzpatricks of the world. And that's what the Browns are going to wind up with next year. But you've got to groom a young quarterback the right way. You got to pick the right guy and groom him the right way. You think Garoppolo would be great going over to the San Francisco 49ers in his first 4 games if he was just out of college? Do you think that without having the experience of seeing the speed at which the game was played and keeping him out of harm's way, do you think that he would be successful? This is just the way the league works. Yeah, he was an asshole, Jim Kelly. But you know something? In the end, it's like your relatives, when you get together at Christmas time, at least one of them's an asshole, but you can forgive, when you get to the Super Bowl a number of times, I guess you can forgive any asshole. That's what it comes down to. I'd love to have a bunch of assholes in Cleveland and get to the Super Bowl. That'd be great. Alex Smith would be perfect. Yeah, and the reason Alex Smith would be perfect, assuming he could stay healthy, is that he's a low risk, low reward quarterback. And if you wanted to start Alex Smith, you couldn't have Huey Jackson as an offensive coordinator because Huey likes to throw the ball down the field. And Alex Smith is probably your ultimate dump off, check down quarterback. He's a high percentage completion thrower who takes the safest road. Doesn't score you a lot of points, doesn't come up with a lot of big plays, but will run the offense, understands the game, and can impart that information to a younger player. Mr. Mikey Duncan says Alex Smith could at least hit Gordon on the deep ball. He technically could, but the thing is that that's not his strong suit. It has not been what he has done in his career. He was criticized in Kansas City largely because there wasn't enough, touchdown score. There was a lot of field goals, field position kinds of football being played, but not enough chances being taken. There's Kevin Lears. Huey likes to abandon the run at the first sign of success, and that's absolutely true. And, we've been saying this for how many decades now since the Browns came back, that you've got to run the football to get anywhere in the cold weather AFC North, because if you have a decent record and it comes down to the end of the season, you're going to be playing in tough conditions. And, it's funny how people remember things about their past glorious Cleveland Browns teams, like the Brian Sipe 70s Cleveland Browns and 1980 Cleveland Browns. And you had the two Pruitts. You had Mike Pruitt and the Do-It Pruitt, Greg Pruitt. And those two guys could really hurt you in the ground game, and the Browns, under Bernie Kosar, had Biner and Mack, which was a tremendous running tandem. And they won a lot of games with those two guys running the football. You have to have that component. And we talk about a great offensive line because we're concerned about protecting our quarterback because of the speed and the violence of the game. But you also need that front line to open up holes for running backs. You've got to tire other teams' defenses. And, we keep talking about it as an organization, but it never gets done. We end up with Eric Rett and all kinds of old, demolished running backs. And when we finally get a guy like Crowell who can run, we refuse to give him the ball. And we instead create a running game that forces him to run east and west. It's just bad. Mr. Mikey Duncan, you going to the parade? No, I don't believe in celebrating failure. I believe in getting rid of failure and replacing it with success. I know you're General Dog. I know who you are, Kevin. It's all good. General Dog is a fixture on the program. Saying what Huey did about Crowell's 59-yard run was a bad statement about a player making a play, as I've ever heard a head coach saying. It's because obviously I think Crowell, who had problems in his college career, may not be exactly the easiest guy to deal with. But, Huey seems more than happy to keep putting Ricardo Lewis on the field, who can't play football. He keeps putting people on the field who literally can't play the game. I think that he could afford to give the football to an asshole is what it amounts to. And I think that's probably what we're looking at as far as the player and the coach not getting along here. But I just it throws me for a loop that it isn't just the quarterback failure of the Cleveland Browns. It is the failure to establish a running game and to commit to people who were, we had the 1 year. Now I'm forgetting his name. Isn't that terrible when you forget the one good running back? Who is the guy? The white guy out of Arkansas. Help me here. Help me, Harvard. Come on, man. I'm losing my mind. Peyton Hillis. God damn it, Mark. I'm getting old. Damn. Peyton Hillis has one great season, and that was all that it was going to be. But at least we committed to giving him the football. And, even the last time we made the playoffs, I remember William Green running down the field. It's just imperative that you have some balance. And especially if you want to groom a young quarterback, you've got to have the ability to take the weight off of a young player's shoulders, and running the football is a great way of doing that. And I don't mind getting knocked off the field on 3rd and 2s if you can't make 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1 on the ground, but putting it in the hands of Deshaun Kaiser and letting him throw the ball up for grabs is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, I know he was on the cover of Madden. Yeah, that was the end of Peyton Hillis. General Dog said I couldn't quite think of his name either. We tend to put these things out of the mind because they're one-hit wonders. It's like, who sang the theme song to the movie Billy Jack? One Tin Soldier was the name of the song. Who sang it? Now, everyone go, one tin soldier rides away. Go ahead and meet your neighbor. Go ahead and meet a friend. Everyone can sing it, but who sang it? Yeah, that's Peyton Hillis. Peyton Hillis sang it. No, A band called Coven, C-O-V-E-N, sang it. But you see, you don't remember Coven because they never sang anything else, and it didn't matter. And Peyton Hillis never did anything. There was no Act Two, so we forget his name. Chuck Stake is a Lions fan. He goes, as a Lions fan, I feel your pain. Our last good running back was Barry Sanders. Boy, he was a dandy, too. And you know something? I watched more Lions games, Chuck, than you think, because I was in Flint, Michigan for 10 years, and during the Wayne Fonts years in Detroit. And the Greg Landry was the last good quarterback we had in Detroit argument, or the Bobby Lane was the last good quarterback we had in Detroit. Believe me, I lived through that agony as well. And Barry Sanders was a tremendous running back. But he escaped more tackles in the backfield than anybody I've ever seen, honestly. You had to be great to play with those 9-7, perpetual 9-7 Wayne Fonts football teams. Unbelievable. So I'm not going to get into who I draft yet. It's not worth that. I do want to say something about the Cleveland Cavaliers, though, because we're kind of back into a lull, if you will, as far as losing again, because we're standing around and not sharing the ball. And we know what the church lady would say. Could it be Satan? But could it be Tristan Thompson? Force feeding players into the lineup might not be the smartest thing in the world, especially when you had the best fucking bench that you've ever had in Cleveland coming off the bench and winning games for you. Why would you fuck with the chemistry, Ty Lue? Why would you do it? And I don't really care about fairness, because if you're really concerned about fairness, why is Channing Frye back on the bench? Fairness has nothing to do with it. And Tristan Thompson is a guy who can provide energy. And I'm not saying that we won't need him at some point during the course of the year. But, to turn the second unit into this great moving off the ball, back-cutting, three-point shooting machine, and throwing Tristan Thompson into the middle of it, who will coagulate and congest the middle, has no shooting range, and to turn them into an alley-oop second unit, it doesn't make any sense to me. Get him off the floor and get Fry back out. Get your rotations back. Let's win some fucking basketball games. God, it isn't that difficult. CO Dead writes, we need to re-sign Whedon. The guy is a proven winner, and coming back as a veteran will help this team find some stability. And put him underneath the flag and let him find his way out first. We could have Hugh in the lake and Brandon under a flag and see who gets out first. For charity, of course. We have a lot of people running around talking about the draft, but it's too early. A lot of evaluation and workouts have to happen. That's right, General Dog. And I haven't even started my homework on that. Whedon had a strong arm, but he was actually more accurate than Kaiser. God, that's a sobering thought. Just sobering. But going back to the Cavaliers, you got to get the back unit. I mean, the second unit has got enough problems coming up. You got Tristan Thompson. You're going to have Shumpert coming back. And you know something? Jetty Osman has been giving us enough of what Shumpert gave us. If you want somebody who doesn't shoot that well, who can run the floor and try hard with a high motor to play defense, well, Osman's got a higher motor than Shumpert now, who falls apart if somebody looks at him funny. So I don't like benching Fry or limiting his minutes to meaningless minutes and benching the rookie when these guys were winning. I look at results as being very important. And, fairness, the fairness doctrine does not apply. Guy gets injured, and not just injured, but injured badly. And after a long streak of health, and you know something, I understand somebody might feel obligated, but teams have caught up to us. If you haven't noticed, the Raptors and the Celtics are right there ahead of us. You got to win. If you're Dan Gilbert and you're investing this kind of money, you expect to win. Play the best second unit, please. I'm with Tony. Christ, people, it's January on Monday. Let the football die for a while. I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you. It's like, it's about over, you know? Now, I have to pick football games, which I haven't done yet. And this is week 17, so I'll do it right in front of your faces. We have Green Bay at Detroit, which Detroit will win. We have Houston at Indianapolis, which Houston will win. You'll have Chicago at Minnesota, which Minnesota will win. You'll have the Jets at New England, which New England will win. Now the Giants in Washington, fuck the Giants. Washington will win. Philadelphia and Dallas, let Philadelphia win. I'm not even saving Cleveland till last. Let Pittsburgh win. We have a destiny. We have a date with 0-16. Come on, folks. Carolina at Atlanta, let Atlanta win. I mean, not that these games, a lot of them make any damn bit of difference. Kansas City at Denver, let Kansas City win. I'm not going to win the league anyway, so I can pick these any damn way I want. Jacksonville will win. The Rams will beat San Francisco. Yes, they will, because I said so, and I know that Garoppolo will get to play, and Jared Goff won't, and all that kind of shit. But what the hell? It doesn't matter. I said so. Buffalo at Miami. Now, I got a Buffalo fan in the chat room, and I really don't want to. Let Buffalo win. We're going to do it for you, man. We're going to make it happen. Buffalo over Miami. The Chargers will beat Oakland. Seattle will beat Arizona. New Orleans will beat Tampa Bay. And the Ravens will beat Cincinnati. The final score of the Kansas City-Denver game, Kansas City will score 20 points, and Denver will score 13 points. San Francisco is going to lose, and they're going to score 17 points, and Garoppolo will come back down to earth, and the Rams will score 27 points. Who will score the most points this week? Oh, what does it matter? Let's go ahead and say that New Orleans is going to score the most number of points this week, and the fewest number, well, of course, that would be our Cleveland Browns. I voted this way every week so far, saving the picks. You watched me in real time make the picks. That's how much I care about it. But one thing I do care about is that I'm going to be here for history, folks. 0-16 on Sunday. There's a halftime show, a post-game show, and afterwards, I'm going to suggest 3 ways in which we can get rid of Huey Jackson forever, and they will be just like the revolutionary guys who end up trying to take over. We will have to assassinate him. So I will have at least how do people join the chat on the webcam? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Vicious Sid, when you jump in to the halftime, especially the post-game show, I put up a link that is a direct studio link. I don't do that usually for the weekday shows, or what I call the week shows. The strong shows or the post-game show will always have a link in the chat room saying join the show with a link, and I'd love to have you on the show this Sunday because it's the last Browns post-game show of the season, and it will be a celebration of 0-16. And I'd love some of the people who have supported the program to come on the air. And it doesn't matter how many of you there are. We have a great connection. We're doing this on YouTube's backbone, and quite honestly, it's fun having a multitude of people, and it's just like, you know what it's like? It's kind of like watching a game with a bunch of friends. The post-game show with a round table is one of the most fun things you can do. According to Lipstick Joe Varden, he who wears high heels, Isaiah Thomas said he tried to force the Cavs to play him on Wednesday, and they denied him. Well, I mean, look, I don't think that until you've practiced 5-on-5, and I don't think that there's any denying him. The Cavaliers, everybody knows, were practicing, And Isaiah Thomas will be part of that 5-on-5 practice. The team doesn't get any chance to practice because they don't want to wear their legs out because they're an older team. Consequently, they're waiting for the 5-on-5 practice with the team to determine whether he's healthy enough to go. I think that's all there is to the Isaiah Thomas story. And believe me, I think Isaiah Thomas, you can tell by looking at him, he's got his headband on, he's got his warm-ups on, and he's jumping off the bench, and he's chomping at the bit. But no, I think you got to be a little bit more patient about that. You got to let him go through a 5-on-5 before, and I don't mean a Canton Charge 5-on-5 practice. I mean a real full Cleveland Cavaliers, not a walkthrough, but a full 5-on-5 workout. And once that happens, he'll be on the court. It'll be good to watch. But just remember, you know, it all creates more difficulties because you have Tristan Thompson, Iman Shumpert, then you have Derrick Rose coming back. And you have Jose Calderon. So there are going to be 4 guys vying for, if they're lucky, a couple of minutes. It's going to be a different story. You better play your best rotations, Ty. You better play your best rotations because it's the only way your team is going to keep their chin up during the dog days of 2018 leading up to the playoffs. All right, that's it, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. But I promise you back again on Sunday at halftime and postgame. And I promise you, Vicious Sid, there will be a link. Don't let me down. Show up. Don't leave me stranded and heartbroken. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Until Sunday, hasta la vista, pasture heads. Go 0-16. Bye-bye now.